Good evening. Good evening. Happy Monday. It's Cindy Baker, ADHD productivity coach. Really, I'm a life coach, but I specialize in people who have ADHD. And so we end up talking about productivity and time management. But I have a master's in counseling. And so I pretty much talk about anything motivational and inspirational. So every Monday night, most Monday nights, I try to come on here and give you some tips and some advice, some help, and answer some of your questions. So if you are jumping on live, if you could say hi in the chat, that would be awesome. I know a lot of people watch the replay, so let me know if you're one of those people that watches the replay. Just say hashtag replay, so I know that you are here. And I'm actually going to share a little bit about motivation, about how dopamine in our brain affects motivation. And so if you're jumping on live, again, say hi in the chat. And if I don't see your questions and comments and reactions while I'm talking, I definitely go back and look at those right after and respond. So keep those comments coming, whatever platform you're watching this on. I really do want to know what your thoughts are. And it just keeps more interesting if there's some interaction. So anyway, dopamine, it's a neurotransmitter that is most likely linked to, it's most linked to ADHD. And dopamine insufficiency in regions of the brain that are associated with self-control, like we call that executive functions, that's documented in research on adult ADHD, documented that we have deficits of this neurotransmitter. And so on the one hand, motivation, dopamine drives motivation. Dopamine fuels passions in the form of anticipation of a possible reward, or novel experiences. And that kind of energizes you wanting to pursue those rewards or incentives, I guess you could say. However, once the desire is fulfilled, then that dopamine rush kind of goes away. So on the other hand, dopamine fuels the control center. That's the brain's kind of like the braking system in your brain. That's the part that's used to plan and organize and implement the steps to achieve a particular interest. And that's also the part of the brain that helps you switch between different tasks and kind of maintain your overall, what they call self-regulation, like your overall well-being, able to make choices and things like that. So the control center or control system in your brain is like that reverse thruster that balances the accelerator. Okay, I'm not a car person, so I don't really know what I'm talking about, but hopefully that makes sense. It's that accelerator part of your brain that chases new things, interesting things, novel things. We're always reactive and looking for something new. So inefficiencies in those, two different functions results in, things like people saying, if I'm interested in something, then I pay attention with no difficulty. But then they're frustrated because if they're not interested, they really have trouble focusing. And a lot of people find themselves not following through on things, even if they're interested in it initially. Let's say put in the chat, even if I know most of you are going to be watching the replay. So put in the chat if you have partially read books laying around your house, either digital, audio, or old-fashioned paper book. Because I see that a lot. It's like we get excited about something and then we lose interest quickly and we don't finish things. when I was younger, before I knew I had ADHD, I had so many interests and hobbies, and I would like buy all this stuff for that hobby, and then I would be like all gun-ho for a short amount of time, and then I would lose interest. And it was like, I can't believe I was so into that last year, and now I'm not even using it, you know. So for instance, people will get all gun-ho about an exercise class, and then they just sort of drift away from it. People drop college courses when they're in school, you know. But on the other end of the continuum, you know, when we have a looming deadline, and if there's the process, I can't talk, the prospect of penalties if you don't meet that deadline, then ADHD people, we're like laser focused to meet that cutoff. Our attention and our efforts to focus are there, you know. What are you doing? I'm sorry, but my dog is like smelling my sweater. I guess I've been around another dog. Anyway, sorry. So where was I before I had a dog smelling me? So yes, deadlines. Deadlines are that dopamine kicks in, and adults with ADHD, you know, we're either at one end or the other of this continuum. Either we typically desire a more consistent and less taxing middle ground, like a motivation and discipline for work, for hobbies, for routines, classes, jobs. And the thing is, you can shape your behaviors once you understand what your brain is doing. That's really what we talk about in my coaching program. I have a group coaching program. It used to be called the 3P Power Program. Now it's the ADHD Success Blueprint. And we talk about understanding how your brain works so that you can actually work with your ADHD instead of fighting against it, trying to be somebody that you're not. And that's really the ticket to thriving with ADHD. So if you have a dopamine deficiency, which you probably do if you have ADHD, that can hurt your productivity. Because dopamine it's really all about the anticipation of a reward. You know, anticipation compared to actually getting the reward. It's the anticipation that really kicks that dopamine into, you know, it's like the chocolate chip cookie at the end of the stick, right? Or the carrot, whatever. It drives behavior more than the carrot, right? And it's like a long stick for adults with ADHD, because the excitement of getting favored over the longer range prospect of sustaining effort. It's like just all or nothing kind of thinking. So it's a familiar pattern for adults with ADHD. So, you know, we have these have to tasks, things that we need to get done. Like back when you were in school, it was homework. Now it might be a report for work. It might be exercise. That, you know, anything with a larger, later payoff. Sometimes we struggle with that because we go after the pleasant distraction of the smaller, sooner payoffs. Like we're not good at delayed gratification, I guess is what I'm saying. So like online shopping, it's a immediate dopamine hit, right? Or some fun activity, as opposed to something that's going to have a positive effect in the future. If we don't see it right now, sometimes our brain just doesn't want to engage for something that has long-term effects. And that sounds really immature, right? But it's about your brain chemistry. It's not about some sort of character deficit. The near term reward that distracts us from the larger, later goal It might be even some kind of chore or errand or other work, and we think, oh, well, it's a good thing. I'm doing something productive. But they even have a name for this. It's really called procrastivity. Yeah, I don't know if that's an official word, but it's like you think you're busy because you're doing things, but you're not really doing the important things that are going to move you towards your long-term goals. So these kind of cycles of starting something and then not, giving up on it, not following through on your pursuits and your ambitions, that takes a toll on you emotionally. A lot of people feel a lot of guilt and shame, and they're frustrated with themselves. And I hear a lot of highly critical self-talk messages, really, that if you said these things to another person, it would be like verbal assault. But I hear people talking about themselves that way. And so you got these repeated outcomes, and it just fosters this creeping disengagement. It's like self-sabotaging behavior. And it really reflects procrastination and avoidance that we all too often see in adults with ADHD. It's like you might have heard of the term learned helplessness. And by the way, I got this part from an article in Psychology Today. Learned helplessness is like people say, well, it's just no use trying because I never accomplish what I want. And so you've failed, and so you've just learned to think that you're always going to fail. So different neurotransmitters like serotonin and endorphins, as well as different mindsets, another thing that we focus on in my group coaching program, different mindsets and behaviors, they're going to govern the upholding of longer term goal directed habits. And these less intense feelings of happiness or liking something, they still operate through the executive functions, but they are going to require a different strategy than than trying to get interested in something that's new, because that's easy for us. We're going to need a different strategy to get our brain focused on long-term payoff, right? Delayed gratification, in other words. So it's like if you, those of you who are married, happily married, it's like, sustaining a long-term committed, loving relationship, and the work that takes after that dopamine rush of the honeymoon period is passed, right? It isn't the same in the long term as it is at the very, very beginning. And so our brain has got to learn to do both, and to not only do the things that feel good in the moment. So how do we do that, right? How do adults with ADHD motivate themselves? Of course, there's medication, but I always say pills are not skills. Nothing wrong with pills. And I've had people go through my coaching program on meds and not. And you still got to learn the skills. But there are medications for adult ADHD that can effectively reduce those core symptoms of inattention, hyperactivity, impulsivity, and the workaround behavioral coping strategies for the executive function stuff that we see in adults, things like procrastination, poor time management, disorganization, emotional discontrol, all stuff we talk about in my group coaching program, that draws on mindsets and beliefs about roles and tasks, long range planning, execution of plans. It all has to do with the dopamine control circuit in our brains, and that whole idea of liking something, wanting to do something. And it's not an easy thing. I'm not saying, just get over yourself and do what you need to do to reach your goals. I mean, it's not that easy. But you've got to develop at least a willingness to stick with plans, even when you don't want to or feel like doing it. And that is going to look different for you than maybe your neurotypical friends or family. So, day-to-day priorities, habits, routines that are related to you keeping up at work or with households or administrative things, things that we have to do, but we kind of see them as a hassle, maybe like exercise or keeping in touch with friends or even creative work. You're going to have a different approach to actually manufacture motivation, because it isn't going to just happen like it does with something new and exciting. So a couple things you can do to kind of get yourself motivated. One's called valuation. Consider why a particular task is important to you. And I think this is really important. When you're thinking about something that's got a far off payoff, it's always important to think about your why. Why does this small task today get you where you want to go in the future? So think about how your future self is going to feel when you get there, and how sometimes in the moment you don't see that it's going to make a difference. But if you can connect now with future payoff, sometimes that makes it easier to get yourself going. Being specific is another thing you can do, like define a task in specific terms coupled with a specific day, a time, and a place that it's going to be done. That's important. Write it in your planner. And then you need external motivation, because it may not come from within, right? So use pictures, quotes, inspirational things to reinforce your plan. Write your goals, affirmations, whatever you need to do to externalize your motivation. If you're trying to lose weight, because you want to, play with your grandkids. I'm a grandparent, so then you might want to put a picture of your grandkids on the refrigerator, and that's your external motivation. But internal is important as well. So coping thoughts, anticipate how you might, because think about how you're going to rationalize avoiding doing something. Think about that ahead of time. Think about, I know what I'm going to say to myself, and then develop task-oriented responses. So, if you're going to try to talk yourself out of something, then already ahead of time have a battle plan where if I think this, I'm going to do this. If that makes sense. So develop strength-based mindsets to promote you following through. Think about your personal characteristics that you can lean on. One of the things we do in my group coaching is we teach people how to leverage the strengths that they have, instead of always focusing on trying to solve problems or the weaknesses or the challenges. You've got to build endurance. This is an aside, but that's one of the things I don't like about some what they call support groups for ADHD, because these people are so focused on their problems and the negative and the challenges, and I don't really see a whole lot of posting and about the good things that they do and the progress, and celebrating progress, and tapping into the superpowers that come with ADHD. So anyway, maybe I need to do a whole Monday night on that. But a big thing that you're going to have to do to get things done is you're going to have to normalize discomfort. I know. Listen, you do not always have to wait until you feel like doing something. Did you know that? It is okay to be uncomfortable. It is okay to not want to do something and still do it. So just acknowledge that you're not going to always be in the mood for a task, but you can still do it. A lot of times the hardest part is just getting started. So just because the task or thinking about the task feels uncomfortable does not mean that it's bad. Most, if not all, goals require facing some kind of discomfort to getting where you want to be, you know? And if you want it bad enough, you're going to have to be willing to go through some discomfort. Like maybe your house is all full of clutter and you just keep procrastinating on decluttering. Well, if you just wait around until you feel like doing it, you're never going to feel like doing it. You're going to have to realize that it is not going to be very fun. It's going to require some decisions you got to make. It's going to be physically exhausting, mentally exhausting, maybe even emotionally exhausting. If you go through things that bring up memory, you're just going to have to face the fact that it ain't going to be fun. But if you can think about your future self, where you walk in your house and it's like, oh, that's going to be worth it, right? So you're investing your discomfort to achieve a goal. It's like saving money so that you can buy something you want or go on a trip. It's not fun saving money, but you go through that discomfort so that you can get a prize at the end. That makes sense. So that's a big one. And the other thing that I would suggest is it has to do with initiation of tasks. And let's just get started. Define the smallest step that when you do it, by definition, it will mean that you have started and you did not procrastinate. Okay. So let's say you need to write some kind of report for work and you hate doing it and you procrastinated. Well, just going in and sitting down at your computer, turning on the computer and opening the document, you've actually started. And you can celebrate, I've started, So take the smallest step, because what happens is you actually kind of find there's some momentum that starts to kick in once you get over that discomfort hump of starting something. Okay. And then once you start, follow through with the implementation plan. Get started, see how it goes, review your results, and then take the next step. And this isn't going to be a perfect process. You're going to need to learn from your slip ups. You are going to mess up. It is okay. No one was born knowing how to do everything perfectly. And have self-compassion. Be nice to yourself. Modify your plan. If you review it, it didn't work, modify it. Be kind to yourself. If you just simply didn't use your plan, the relapse rate for procrastination is 100% for everyone. So each time is a chance to learn and grow. So reviewing or developing a plan or a list of tips doesn't guarantee that you're going to follow through. However, those steps help transform a goal, even though that goal may be kind of vague in the future. Taking the steps is more tangible and real. And it's like a way you can actually touch a task and bring it into the reality. And that manufactures just enough motivation to get started. And sometimes action precedes motivation. I would say if you have ADHD, most of the time, you have to do the action instead of waiting to get motivated. then you have to actually do the action, which brings the motivation. If that makes sense. So regardless of how we build up motivation, once we get started, we can discover what we can cause to happen. Because the decisions that you make and the actions that you take determine your future. And so we're almost at the end of the year, and people are starting to think about next year and making changes. Listen, this is the kind of stuff I help people with all the time. So if you want my help, please reach out. I would love to just meet with you for free on Zoom for maybe 15 to 30 minutes. Hear a little bit about what your challenges are with ADHD, and tell you a little bit about my coaching program, and see if we think it's a good fit. Because most people just don't even know about it, and it can change your life. And so you could sit around and wait for motivation, or you could get the strategies, the support, the structure, the accountability that you need. So hard way, do it on your own. Easy button, let me walk along with you. It's up to you. I'm never a high pressure person. So anyway, but if you want to know more about it, I love talking about it. I'm excited about it. And we'll still be friends if you decide not to join my coaching program. So just reach out. Let's just put in the chat, just say, I'd like to meet with you, or I'm interested in coaching, or something like that. And I'll send you a direct message with my calendar link. You can book a call and we'll get on Zoom and chat. So I hope that you found this helpful, and I hope that your week has been off to a good start. I hope this is some good Monday motivation for you. And so I will see you next time. Don't forget to put your comments in the chat.